So we are going to now talk about the closing coordinator role. This is Mitch Messer, and I am the founder of Deal Slicer. And it is Friday afternoon here. Well, actually, Friday, afternoon here in Medellin, Colombia. It's about 1:13. It's beautiful outside. I'm looking outside now, and I want to record these trainings because I want people to understand how important the closing coordinator role is to this whole process. If you don't close, no one makes any money. So we're going to talk about how the closing coordinator ties into all the other roles and what they do and how they do it. And of course, the purpose of having a closing coordinator is to have someone on the team who can help you smoothly close, double close specifically, wholesale transactions. And this is the first module, the introduction. And I'm sure by now you're all sick of seeing this 7 role diagram that describes the deal slicer fractional wholesaling framework, starting with seller marketer all the way around to deal maker. This is how we divvy up deals, the responsibility for tackling and taking down deals so that people don't step on each other's toes, so they don't leave important functions undone. This is how it's done so that you can collectively win and be clear on what exactly you're supposed to be doing if you know what your role is. And right now we're going to talk about that, the closing coordinator function specifically. This is the 6th of the 7 roles. Doing it is going to earn that role a 10% share. So if one person is doing the closing coordinator function, that person, by my framework, or the deal slicer framework, should be getting 10% of the wholesale fee. If you had multiple people doing that function, then you could decide how that's going to be divvied up amongst them. If you had 2 people doing it, they'd each get 5% if you divvied it up evenly. But the important part is that this role, this function, deserves, in my opinion, a 10% share. So let's talk about what the closing coordinator actually does. And here it is. Their job is to coordinate directly with the closer. We'll define what the closer is later, but the closer regarding all closing related items, and there are quite a few of them. They're going to open escrow with that closer using the seller commitment documents to begin the process of allowing these closings to happen. They'll arrange for the seller and the investor to attend their respective closings at the scheduled time and date, and then they're going to get the closing documents reviewed first and then obtain a copy of those documents so that we all know how the deal went down specifically, and most importantly, how we're all going to get paid at the end of that. So let's just be really clear. The sole purpose of closing coordination is to ensure smooth, accurate double closings. When we're talking about a wholesale transaction, for the purposes of this trading, I'm always going to be talking about double closing, which is to say, as a wholesaler, I'm going to buy from a seller, and then I'm going to turn around and sell to an investor buyer, and then I'm going to collect the profit, the difference between those two prices, as my wholesale fee. And that is legal in all 50 states. There's never going to be an issue. There's never going to be a restriction against doing that because clearly in those 2 transactions, I'm a buyer in one and I'm a seller in the other. At no point am I trying to be an agent without a license, which is where people get in trouble when they do assignments. This is clearly 2 transactions where my role as a buyer and then a seller is clear. If you do an assignment and you have a buyer and a seller and you're kind of in the middle, then it looks an awful lot like you're acting as an agent. And if you're not a licensed agent, then it's murky whether you're doing something that's legal or not. And so when people complain about wholesaling and is it legal and they wonder and they scratch their heads, that's always about assignment. That is never about double closing. Double closings are legal everywhere. It's my property to buy it. It's my property to sell. And so no laws or rules or regulations are going to stop me from being able to do that, provided that we're talking about cash transactions. If you're dealing with a lender, there may be some other requirements and restrictions that may make that difficult. But if I'm doing a cash transaction to buy and then to sell, then no one else has any right to tell me that I can't do that. And that's legal everywhere. So who does the closing coordinator interact with? Well, primarily they interact with the document manager because when you get down to the point of starting to talk about the closing, it's really a document transfer. It's getting documents from the deal vault into the hands of the closer, and that's going to be done with the help of the document manager, but specifying which documents need to be obtained. That's going to be the closing coordinator's job, and making sure that they were received. That's also going to be the closing coordinator's responsibility. But they'll also interact with the investor manager, because the investor manager is going to be the one that talks directly to the investor. And they're going to talk to the seller manager, because the seller manager is going to be the one talking to the seller. So they'll need the cooperation of those two managers to make these closings happen. And they may, from time to time, interact with other roles as well, but these are the primary three.